After a party political broadcast by the Labour Party.
There's an election coming, so John Major's out making promises. But as you listen to them, remember what happened last time. Before the election, he said he would cut taxes year on year. But instead, he broke his word and sneaked in 22 tax rises. There are two faces to John Major. He says one thing before an election, he does another thing afterwards. John Major's broken tax promises have hit families hard. He broke his promise by sneaking in taxes that have put up the cost of your home, like the rises in home insurance. He broke his promise by imposing taxes that put up the cost of married life, by cutting mortgage tax relief and the married couple's allowance. He broke his promise by sneaking in taxes that have put up the cost of your holidays, including the introduction of a new airport tax. And he broke his promise by sneaking in taxes that increased the cost of driving, with fuel duties and tax increases on car insurance. In all, John Major has raised taxes 22 times since 1992, breaking all his election promises. John Major says one thing before an election and does another afterwards. At the last election, John Major specifically said he wouldn't increase VAT. He promised not to extend it to essentials like heating. But as soon as he was safely back in Downing Street, he put VAT on domestic heating bills. It's a cruel tax that hits the most vulnerable hardest. But the Conservatives still want to double it. VAT on heating forces people to choose between keeping warm or eating properly. John Major broke his word to pensioners. With VAT on heating, he broke his word to young families as well. John Major says one thing before an election and does another afterwards. Now he says he has no plans to extend VAT to food and other essentials. But after what he did on heating, does anyone believe him? He's broken his word before, and if he can get away with it, he'll do so again. And again. And again. There are two faces to John Major. He says one thing before an election and does another thing afterwards. Enough is enough.
Under the Conservatives, you've been hit by 22 tax rises since 1992. So it's time for a new trust between the British people and a Labour government on tax. Because I believe in a tax system that's fair, we'll cut VAT on heating to 5%. And because I want a tax system that will encourage and reward hard work, our 5-year pledge is not to increase income tax rates. And when resources are available, we'll introduce a new lower starting rate of income tax at 10 pence. If you want to talk to me about tax or about the economy, please feel free to telephone me now. Our telephone lines are open. I look forward to receiving your call.
If you would like to put a question to Gordon Brown, please call 0990 900 200. That's 0990 900 200 now.
If you have had enough of the Conservatives and would like to help the Labour Party, then please write to us at Free Post, the Labour Party.
That party political broadcast by the Labour Party will be shown again with subtitles on BBC Two tonight at 10:25.
Question time tonight comes from Birmingham with the former Conservative Prime Minister, Sir Edward Heath, the former Labour Cabinet Minister, Tony Benn, the thriller writer Frederick Forsyth, and the Liberal Democrat Social Security spokeswoman Liz Lynn. And of course our audience here in Birmingham ready to put their questions and argue with the panel. Join us at 10:35.
Now on BBC One, the main evening news with Peter Sissons. It's 9:05.
A Jordanian soldier has shot dead 7 Israeli schoolgirls. Others in their group, which was on a school outing, were wounded before their attacker was overpowered. Britons in Albania are being evacuated as the entire country slides into chaos. And the light of remembrance, 1 year after Dunblane's darkest hour. Good evening. A Jordanian soldier today turned his automatic rifle on a group of Israeli schoolgirls who were on a field trip, leaving 7 of them dead and others badly wounded. And the killings immediately fanned simmering tensions between Israel and Jordan, with some Israelis connecting the violence to the recent bitter words aimed by King Hussein at Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. The attack took place at a border site controlled by Jordan known as the Island of Peace. From there, our correspondent Jeremy Bowen reports.
Jordanian soldiers on guard at the enclave called the Island of Peace. Not many people will be using that name anymore. After the shooting, Israeli and Jordanian forces flooded both sides of the border, trying to work out what happened. It seems that around 80 girls, 13 and 14 years old, were here this morning on a school trip. A Jordanian soldier opened fire at them at close range. He chased the schoolgirls, shooting at them as they tried to run away. He was overpowered by other Jordanian soldiers when he tried to reload. Once the casualties had been taken away, ultra-religious Jews collected every trace of blood. It will all be buried. Jordanian soldiers helped them. This is Jordanian land returned by Israel under the 1994 peace treaty. Israeli civilians have easy access to this small scrap of the Arab world. It's a popular place for an outing. The casualties were taken to hospitals in Israel and Jordan. One of the wounded girls, Hila Ivri, whose sister was also shot in the stomach, had a good look at the gunman.
He was like a bad guy, and he was with big eyes.
Frantic families gathered at the children's school for news, waiting for the buses that brought the survivors back. One man shouted, "We can give the Arabs as much land as we like, they'll still kill us." A woman told him to be quiet. "You wouldn't talk like that if it was your kid," she said. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, condemned the killings.
We can have disagreements. They're inevitable in any kind of process, in any kind of negotiation. But we cannot pursue peace unless we pursue it peacefully.
This morning, before the shooting, Yasser Arafat arrived in Bethlehem. Behind his helicopter is the hill where Israel plans to build the new Jewish settlement of Har Homa. Mr. Arafat believes that will violate the peace agreements and provoke violence. His view is shared by King Hussein of Jordan. Earlier this week, the king wrote to the Israeli Prime Minister to complain about what was happening, saying that thanks to his policies, the region was fast sliding towards an abyss of bloodshed and disaster. The king's letter went on. "How can I work with you as a partner and true friend in this confused and confusing atmosphere when I sense an intent to destroy all I worked to build between our people?" Mr. Netanyahu issued an angry reply. "We cannot at every stage of this agreement engage in cataclysmic predictions and talk of crisis and violence." This afternoon, the king expressed his sorrow, but stood by his letter.
When I warned a couple of days ago of what I perceived as danger, of despair and the possibility of violence, I never thought that it would break the way it did today. But I was fully within my responsibility to try to warn one and all that we have come too far.
After today's terrible events at the place they have always called the Island of Peace, there is even more need for urgent action, probably by Washington, to bring the two sides together. What happened here this morning appears to have been the work of one man, but it's also a tragic reminder of what a breakdown in the peace process could mean for ordinary civilians. The negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians are still in deep crisis, with very little trust on either side. This evening, Israeli families have started to bury their dead. If Israelis and Palestinians now harden their positions, there will be more danger and sorrow ahead. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, in the Jordan Valley.
Here, a leaked report by a cross-party committee of MPs has severely criticised the government's nursery voucher scheme. It says the evidence that vouchers would raise standards and provide extra places was inconclusive, and it warned that parental choice could even be reduced. The scheme starts in England and Wales next month and in Scotland in August, but it's already been piloted in 4 areas, including Norfolk.
Parents in Norfolk who've been trying out nursery vouchers for a year have found they're misnamed. They're really vouchers for 4-year-olds. Parents can use them at either private nurseries, voluntary playgroups, state nursery schools, or reception classes in primary schools. Because the government took money away from schools in the first place to fund the scheme, the primary schools are desperate to get it back. That means that some are encouraging children to start early in reception classes and enticing them away from private nurseries or playgroups. The Select Committee says these reception classes, which are usually much larger and work to a different curriculum than nurseries, aren't suitable for most 4-year-olds. Opposition members of the committee say if children aren't getting proper nursery education, this undermines the scheme.
There's been very many places where there's been massive entry into already overcrowded reception classes in schools, not providing the best form of education. So overall, a condemning report of this way of developing high-quality early years education.
The private Rainbow Nursery in North Walsham expected vouchers to bring expansion, but its numbers have dropped by 2/3 since vouchers began, as its 4-year-olds were enticed into starting early at nearby primary schools.
Most of the losses have been in the 4-year-old age range, and the primary reason there is the parents are afraid of losing their place for their child in school at 5. So they're in essence being coerced into the schools.
The government has hit back, saying critics should look at Norfolk, where there has been an increase in parental choice and in places.
They will find 800 new places provided by the local authority as a direct result of the voucher. They will find a net increase of nearly 300 places in the voluntary sector as a result of the voucher, and they'll find 1,300 4-year-olds who are now having up to 5 sessions a week in the voluntary sector, where previously all they had was 2 or 3 sessions.
But Norfolk says it was only able to create new places after the government made cash available for it to build 25 new nursery classes, something it won't be able to do again next year and which won't be available to other councils.
I'm horrified to see that as the scheme goes forward nationally, the money which we had for capital programme this year has been taken away from us, and the money is not being available to anybody else in the country.
The leak of this report is particularly sensitive, as the government believes the vouchers, which many parents have just received, are a vote winner. So Labour, who will abolish them within 18 months, is keen to highlight any shortcomings before the voucher scheme starts next month. Mike Baker, BBC News.
The foster father of the murdered schoolgirl Billy Jo Jenkins has been rearrested by detectives in Hastings. 39-year-old Sean Jenkins was released on police bail last month. Today, police obtained a magistrate's warrant, allowing them to question him for up to 36 hours.
Billy Jo Jenkins was bludgeoned to death in the garden of her home with a metal tent spike on February the 15th. Detectives described the killing as a frenzied attack. 3 days later, her legal guardians, Sean and Lois Jenkins, gave a news conference at which they made an emotional appeal for information. Mr. Jenkins also spoke of his family's devastation at Billy Jo's death.
As a family, we are totally devastated. We do not understand why our daughter has been murdered or what the motive could possibly be.
Mr. Jenkins, the deputy head teacher of a boys' school near the family home in Hastings, was first arrested 9 days after the murder of Billy Jo, who was 13 years old. Her foster father was released on police bail the next day. Mr. Jenkins was rearrested this afternoon. Sussex police issued a statement saying they'd rearrested a man in his 30s and had obtained a warrant from a magistrate to question him further. The police have until tomorrow night to decide whether to bring charges. John McIntyre, BBC News.
About 100 Britons have fled the Albanian capital Tirana this evening. British officials hope to evacuate them by ship to Italy tomorrow. The country is now said to be on the verge of anarchy. President Berisha has appealed to the European Union to send in peacekeeping troops. Members of his own family are reported to have fled to Italy by boat as the rebels advance. Ben Brown was in the town of Elbasan when it fell to the rebels earlier today.
Albania's orgy of looting is now almost nationwide, and the army and police are powerless to stop it. In Elbasan, the second biggest city, I walked into the main military barracks today to find the looters hard at work. Soon this will be a country where the people have got all the guns while the army have none, where little boys no longer need toy weapons when they can help themselves to the real thing. Here in Elbasan, as in much of the rest of Albania, all law and order has now broken down. There is complete chaos and anarchy, and it doesn't look as though it will stop until President Berisha resigns. Just down the road from this insanity, we found a children's home in Elbasan, run by a British couple who are refusing to leave, despite pleas for them to do so by their embassy. Mike and Judy Smith have 22 boys and girls in their care whose parents are incapable of looking after them. The Smiths told me they have little choice but to stay.
We're mum and dad, and some of them already lost a mother or a father, and it really doesn't bear thinking of for them to have to lose another one. The children need us. The children need us. It just comes back to the children all the time, as you can see.
For those Britons and other expatriates who do want to leave, it's not easy to do so. Tirana Airport is now closed. There's been shooting nearby and all flights have been cancelled. So instead, the British Embassy here has made alternative plans for an evacuation, driving scores of its citizens by convoy to the coast. Many are missionaries who are reluctant to leave, but Albania is self-destructing, and helicopters and naval frigates are standing by to get them out.
Last night, with shooting going off all night in Tirana, it was quite frightening. But I'm very, very sad to be leaving, because all of our Albanian friends are very, very disturbed.
I feel really sad for Albania, really sad.
Back in Elbasan, the city's hospital is filling up with casualties. President Berisha's appeal to the West for peacekeeping troops, but a quicker way to bring calm to his country may be for him to abandon it as well. It might be only a matter of days before he's forced to do so. Ben Brown, BBC News, Elbasan, Central Albania.
Tonight, candles have been lit in homes across Britain in memory of the 16 children and their teacher who were killed a year ago today at Dunblane Primary School. Relatives and friends of the victims have marked the day in private with a ceremony of remembrance at the school. The BBC, in common with other broadcasters, agreed to the parents' request to stay away from the town today. Our Scotland correspondent Andrew Castle reports.
At Stirling University this evening, a few miles from Dunblane, students remembered the children and teacher murdered in the primary school gym. The candles have become a symbol of the triumph of light over darkness. The parents regard the lighting ceremonies all over the country as a fitting act of remembrance to Britain's worst mass killing. This morning, at the site where the gym once stood, a number of the Dunblane parents and relatives gathered at 9:30, about the time the killing started, to mark the occasion in private. The head teacher of Dunblane Primary, speaking to BBC Scotland earlier this week, said it had been a difficult year.
We have been changed by this. We will never be the same again, but the school will move forward. It is a watershed on Thursday. We rather hope it's going to be a watershed, but as I said earlier, I don't think it'll be our last hurdle, but I hope that any that come in the future will diminish as time goes on.
And at their book launch last week, some of the parents spoke of their feelings. Corinne Turner lost her daughter Megan. She gave an insight into the unrelenting sadness which makes the normal routine of ordinary life so difficult.
I don't think it really does get any easier. Sometimes you find things that you do, it's easy. I mean, getting up is now more easy than it used to be. But whenever the kids come off on holiday from school and they break up for a holiday and they have to go back, I always find that very difficult because I know that she should be there.
Another victim, Sophie North, was an only child who'd been helping her father come to terms with the death of her mother from cancer less than 2 years before.
I think I'm very unlikely to feel better in the days immediately after the anniversary. These things aren't hurdles to get over and then you can go running forward. There'll be another hurdle coming up. Things will improve gradually.
For the last 12 months, Dunblane has had to cope with its grief in public, while at the same time adjusting to its role as the focus for a national campaign to ban handguns. But the trauma was shared by an entire country, and tonight a single candle shone from Downing Street. Earlier at Westminster, politicians paid their tributes.
This is clearly going to be a very difficult and emotional time for the bereaved, and I think for the whole community of Dunblane. I'm sure the thoughts not only of this House but of the entire nation are with them today.
We remember the little ones that died, we grieve with their parents and their friends, and they will not be lost in the memory of this nation. And we say, all of us, to the people of Dunblane, that today our thoughts and prayers are with them and in the years to come.
In Glasgow, as in towns and cities throughout the country, they've been marking the day by lighting candles. And as the parents requested, hundreds of homes in Scotland placed a candle of remembrance in their windows. It has been a day of few words and much reflection. Andrew Castle, BBC News, Glasgow.
The BBC has learnt that a £2 billion order for 3 nuclear submarines will be announced in the next few days. It's understood the order will go to GEC Marconi's vhs-arh shipyard in Barrow-in-Furness. The order secures the future of more than 7,000 workers. They'll now have more work after completing the last of Britain's 4 Trident submarines. A soldier was slightly injured in a terrorist attack on a security force patrol in North Belfast today. An explosive device struck the side of an armoured vehicle as it patrolled the Republican Ardoyne area. The police have made several arrests. The High Court has ruled that a former Royal Navy medical assistant can challenge in the European Court of Justice the government's ban on homosexuals serving in the armed forces. Terry Perkins claims that sacking someone for being gay is sexual discrimination. The IRA bombing suspect, Roisin McAlliskey, who's almost 8 months pregnant, is to be allowed to keep her baby with her while she's held on remand in Holloway Prison. Miss McAlliskey, who's the daughter of the former Nationalist MP Bernadette McAlliskey, is wanted in Germany for questioning over a terrorist attack on a British Army barracks. Our Home Affairs correspondent John Silverman reports.
Tonight, unexpectedly, Roisin McAlliskey was rushed to hospital. I understand the emergency wasn't connected to her pregnancy. She's being held on terrorist charges, the only Category A prisoner in Holloway. The jail has a mother and baby unit, and today she was told that despite her security status, she can keep her child with her after the birth in May.
From the time she leaves the prison and goes to the hospital and gives birth and returns, she will not at any time be under any form of restraint, handcuff or anything else. She will have 2 birthing partners of her choice attending her during the delivery.
A protest campaign to publicise Roisin McAlliskey's case has been gathering momentum. Her supporters welcomed today's decision, but her mother pointed out that she's still being held in restrictive conditions.
The only exercise offered to her is climbing 5 flights of stairs, 1 down and a further 4 up, to walk around 7 square foot of the roof, which is enclosed, and she's not capable of doing it.
The bombing of the Quebec barracks at Osnabrück last June led to a major investigation by the German police. Eventually, they applied for the arrest and extradition of 2 suspects. One of them was Roisin McAlliskey, seen here at the funeral of Dominic McGlinchey, the terrorist leader killed in 1994. Despite the strength of the protests, the Home Office points out that Roisin McAlliskey is being held entirely in accordance with the law. But the issue is one of great sensitivity, with Britain incurring the wrath of senior Irish politicians.
Well, it seems to me very inhumane and certainly a civil rights issue
human rights issue that a person who is 7 months pregnant, a 7-stone frail lady, has to be treated on this way when she has never been charged.
After a hospital check, the Category A inmate was taken back to Holloway. The German authorities have made it clear that they expect Roisin McCallasky to be held in custody until she's extradited. So tomorrow, another bail application will be resisted by the Crown Prosecution Service. John Silverman, BBC News at Holloway Prison.
German miners have ended 4 days of strikes and street protests after reaching agreement with the government. Chancellor Kohl says he'll now phase in his plans to cut subsidies to the industry and has promised there'll be no compulsory redundancies. But as our Bonn correspondent William Horsley reports, the miners' protest has highlighted the growing problems facing Germany as it tries to meet the conditions for joining the European single currency.
Morning before the talks, and 8,000 miners camp in Cologne, ready to march on Bonn. Their threat that cities could burn is about to be heeded. Hans Berger, the miners' union leader, has had peace signals from Chancellor Kohl before their meeting, but both sides are nervous about the public mood. Meanwhile, in Berlin, building workers laid off in the hard times lay siege to the city centre, and in a parallel protest to the miners in Bonn, aimed their wrath unerringly at the Chancellor himself. By mid-morning, the Chancellor's men are announcing his compromise with the miners. Half the pits are to close, but more money is being found to cushion the mass redundancies.
We could be prepared to give a guarantee, to commitment to pay roughly 1 billion Deutschmarks more for the first 3 years.
Und wir sollten Ihnen auch mal ein herzliches Glück aufzurufen.
Relief among the pit workers. It's better than most had dared to hope. Their industrial communities might escape the unemployment scourge. But tough reforms have been put off, the economy is marking time, and Germany's bid to join a single currency has not been helped.
We have to be realistic. It could happen that we are not fulfilling the criteria in a strict way, and that would mean the obvious outcome of that, the logic is that we must be prepared as well that a delay might be possible.
The deal offered to the miners looks like a bid to buy industrial peace at the cheapest price. That price may not be high enough for the thousands of workers who will lose their jobs. And with the extra spending, the German government has set itself a new roadblock on the path to a European single currency. Before turning for home, the visitors take a bow past Helmut Kohl's own window. No shouting, no blockades, but the wave says they may be back. William Horsley, BBC News, Bonn.
Here, within the last few minutes, police have said they've recovered the Picasso painting, worth more than £500,000, which was stolen from a London gallery last week. 2 men have been arrested. A purpose-built prison ship designed to ease overcrowding in the country's jails has arrived at Portland in Dorset. The ship cost £4 million and can house nearly 500 inmates, but the local council has already opposed plans to moor it in the harbour. Duncan Kennedy watched it arrive.
Ship to shore, Britain's newest jail floating into Portland today. Sailed over from New York in 16 days, it will be taken off its barge and moored. With land-based jails filling to capacity, the government says this temporary measure will help ease the pressure. But its arrival has divided opinion among local people.
I think it's wrong. We're going back 200 years now, you know. There were ships here 200 years ago, prison hulks, to held prisoners. Are we in that bad a state to have to go back 200 years? I think it's a calamity for us.
I did really expect it to be a lot bigger and uglier than it is, and it isn't at all. I don't know, I don't think we should be too worried about it, really.
The Resolution has already been refurbished, ready for its new low-risk inmates. Up to 480 of them will be housed in rows of single and double cells, each with their own sanitation. It has a gym, a library and a chapel. There's also a swimming pool with 4 squash courts, but the prison service says these won't be used. The vessel, which is the length of a football pitch, will also have a fenced-in recreation area. But some local campaigners argue it's an offensive 19th century penal tool unwelcome today.
Oh, against a ship on moral grounds, I think it's offensive that a prison ship should exist in this day and age, and that a convict ship should be once more seen out in those waters after the experience of the 19th century and the stigma that hung around the neck of this island.
Britain currently has around 59,000 prison inmates. More are being jailed at the rate of about 300 a week. That's why the government is searching for all kinds of conventional and unconventional alternatives. Put simply, its practical prison-building programme can't keep up with its get-tough philosophical stance on crime. The Resolution is being manoeuvred into position tonight, ready for operational use. If final approval is eventually given, then the first inmates to become shipmates in over 100 years could start coming aboard in the next few weeks. Duncan Kennedy, BBC News, at Portland in Dorset.
The new chairman of the England cricket selectors is David Graveney, the former Gloucester and Durham spinner. His first task will be to pick the side for the series against Australia this summer. He'll be joined by Mike Gatting and Graham Gooch, who've both been appointed as selectors. The 20-to-1 outsider, Mr Mulligan, ridden by the Irish jockey Tony McCoy, has won this year's Cheltenham Gold Cup. Barton Bank came second and Doran's Pride was third. Tony McCoy is the 10th jockey to win both the Champion Hurdle and the Gold Cup at Cheltenham in the same year.
It's been a vintage festival of racing. The weather's been benign, the crowds have broken records. It's not been one, though, to have threatened to break the bookies' banks. Today was no exception. The race, which attracts the third biggest betting outlay on the sporting calendar, was another punter's nightmare. It had been billed as the most open Gold Cup in a generation, but that hadn't stopped the thousands of Irish visitors piling on the money for Imperial Call, last year's winner, and Dunolly, a horse almost as close to their hearts as the incomparable Arkle. Neither was remotely involved in the finish, nor, frankly, was any other once Mr Mulligan had cleared the last. The horse with the Irish name, trained by an Irishman and ridden by an Irishman, was emphatically striking a blow for his English breeders and owner. And at 20-to-1, the fifth longest priced winner ever, the men with the bulging satchels as well. For the majority then, joy was not exactly unconfined. But it was for the jockey Tony McCoy, who completed a rare Champion Hurdle and Gold Cup double. Kevin Geary, BBC News.
And the main news tonight, a Jordanian soldier has shot dead 7 Israeli schoolgirls and wounded several others. The girls were on a field trip at a border site known as the Island of Peace. Newsnight is on BBC 2 at 10:30. That's all from the 9 o'clock news. Good night.
Good evening. A firm of solicitors could face disciplinary action after sending a bill for £12,000 to the 80-year-old mother of an employee who'd taken his own life. The claim included a charge for knocking on the mother's door to inform her that her son was dead. The firm says it rejects any suggestion that it acted improperly.
Christopher Bryant's sister finds the bill that was sent to his 80-year-old mother by his own employers hard to believe. Mr. Bryant, described as a workaholic, committed suicide. He worked for James Beecham Solicitors in Birmingham. Their total charges for work done after his death came to £12,278.
The invoice actually was for over £12,000, but the item on it was the £150 that they have invoiced for going to my mother's house and knocking on her door and telling her that her son was dead. And they have charged 1 hour at £150. Absolutely unbelievable.
I have to say that on the information I've seen, I find the whole situation extraordinary. I wouldn't expect most solicitors to have brought in the charge for much of the work which appears to have been carried out by the solicitor here.
James Beecham Solicitors denied acting improperly, but in a statement faxed to Midlands Today this evening, they said in view of the distress caused, they wouldn't be charging Mr. Bryant's family for the work they'd done. Andy Newman, Midlands Today, Birmingham.
West Midlands police were called to control a crowd gathering to watch a fire at a clothing factory in the Black Country earlier this evening. 40 firefighters tackled the blaze at Birmingham Hosiery in Smethwick. It's now been brought under control, but the factory has suffered thousands of pounds worth of damage. The fight to save services at the Hospital of St Cross in Rugby is intensifying. The town's MP, James Pawsey, says he'll be demanding assurances from the government in a special Commons debate tonight.
The future of St Cross has been in doubt since the start of the year, with GPs worried about referring patients, concern about services, and the hospital's decision to give up its trust status and merge with two neighbours. Mr Pawsey says he's had enough.
I know that the hospital will not close, but I want to hear it from the minister's own lips. Now, I want then an assurance that we're not going to have further problems with any other services. I want assurances that we'll be maintaining about 90 to 95% of the existing services. I want assurances that there will be no redundancies.
Uproar greeted the last threat to St Cross 2 years ago, and Mr Pawsey, who takes a delegation to the Department of Health next week, says only a firm guarantee will prevent a new row. Sahid Worley, Midlands Today, Westminster.
A 35-year-old Leicester woman has become the Midlands' newest millionaire. She struck lucky last night as one of 2 winners of the lottery jackpot, picking up just over £1.5 million. Lucky thing. Well, that's all from the Midlands newsroom tonight. Here's the weather now with Peter Cockcroft.
Good evening. For most of us, spring may have sprung, but up in the far north of the British Isles, winter has returned. Overnight tonight, the temperature in Shetland will be very close to or below freezing, and there could be quite a bit of the white stuff over the higher ground, perhaps as much as an inch of snow lying at low levels before the night is through. But you can see for the rest of the British Isles, temperatures are going to stay well above zero. In fact, in the south, quite mild at 7 or 8 degrees. The cold air is tucked in behind this weather front here. This one in the west will be bringing some cloud and rain with it overnight tonight. There could be some quite heavy bursts of rain, perhaps the odd rumble of thunder over Northern Ireland and later on the western side of Scotland. And that cloud and rain will also be spilling across Wales and across much of England. Now into tomorrow, and that first weather system moves out of the way. Later in the day, another one will come in from the west, and that one introducing the colder into northern areas will be weakening through the day. So up in Northern Highland region, it's going to remain rather cloudy all day, and there could even be a little bit of sleet and snow over the hills on the northern edge of that rain band. Elsewhere, well, on the eastern side of Scotland, eastern England, the rain clearing away. It's going to be dry and bright by the afternoon, some sunshine breaking through, but later on we are going to find the cloud thickening up, some mist and drizzle coming into the southwestern coasts and hills. And by the way, things should have brightened up by the afternoon up in Shetland, but it will remain rather cold there, just 3 Celsius, whereas in the sunshine in the south, top temperatures could reach 14 degrees. Now, with a couple of weather fronts straddling the country to start the weekend, it looks as though it's going to be dull and damp in most places, although there will be a little bit of dry, bright weather breaking through inland during Saturday. Better news for Sunday as high pressure takes over. We're going to find some more of that spring sunshine turning up, quite warm across southern areas. We'll see some of it in Wales, across in England, in Northern Ireland, but it might take a wee while for Scotland to brighten up as that weather system moves away to the northeast. Good night.
Is this every husband's dream?
Have you ever been unfaithful?
No. To love more than one person?
Would it be against the rules that I told you I love you?
To have more than one life?
If you still love your wife, you are still faithful.
To stray and still be trusted?
You are the only other woman I have been to bed with in 20 years of marriage to Charlotte.
To have your cake and eat it starts Saturday 9:20 on BBC One.
Comic Relief brings you programmes as you've never seen them before.
Hello and welcome once again to University Challenge.
Very Duckworth, Rover's Return. Hot pot, especially is as much depth as a paddling pool.
The letters they read out, I write them all myself.
This conversation is getting a little strange.
Can anyone just walk back to 1941? That's joking.
Yeah, all right. Good night, sweetheart.
For a great night of comedy, Comic Relief, tomorrow from 7, BBC One.
Gary and Dorothy are back together and everything's different. For about 10 seconds, the men are still behaving badly in half an hour. First on BBC One, the camera never lies, but you can't say the same for the deputy head.